So I think we're good. Everything seems to be working. We're going live in about a minute. I don't know if anyone can hear me yet. A few people online. It's actually good. Frame in right there. Still coming from up there. That's fine though. Okay, I don't know if we're up and running just yet. Trying a different way of doing this to actually set up the event itself. So hold on here. So if anyone can see me now, let me know. I don't think we are running yet though. But we'll see very shortly. If you can hear me, I hope everyone is well. Okay, looks like we are up and running and live now. So, hello, and let me just make sure we're on mute. Hi, how's everyone doing? Welcome to my Clarity After Scientology. We're trying another live chat right now. Hopefully it is running. If someone can let me know if anyone's there. Looks like we are rolling. We got 7 people watching. Okay, looks like we're good. Ah, yeah, there we are. All right, I am live. All right, so tonight we're going to be doing a quick Q&A, and I'm leaving it open. If anyone wants to ask me any questions, go ahead. I'll take up your questions afterwards. Let me just get the get the chat set up so I can have it next to my questions. And we will get started. I hope everyone's doing well on this Sunday. Today is my football watching day, and my team is getting their butts kicked really badly right now, which is to be expected. All right, so welcome. I have somebody from Connecticut and several other people as well. Okay, good. Sorry. So let's get started. Okay, so I think there's any announcements we have. I am working on an interview I'm going to be doing with somebody from Buffalo. He's actually probably watching right now. He was a kid who grew up in Scientology and actually went to the Mace Kingsley Ranch for a number of years after I had left. So I'm going to kind of get in touch. We'll just basically do a video. I want to kind of get some fillers as to what happened in Buffalo after I left. So this might be a good person to talk to. It should be enjoyable. I've known this kid before he even knew himself. Very good friends with his mother and his father. So it should be an interesting chat that we're going to have. I'm also going to probably after the holiday or during the holiday weekend take some time to finish off kind of the rest of my story about what happened to me after my mother-in-law had passed away. So we will go through and kind of fill in the blanks, because I did a video called Why I Got into Scientology and Why I Left. And obviously I kept it very vague as to why I left because I didn't want to get too much into this other story. So we're going to be able to do that now. Okay, so let's start off with our questions. I have a very funny one to take up at the very last, on the very last question. So, all right, so this is from Phil by Infication. I don't know if I'm saying that correctly. The question was, what surrounding New York areas, small cities, were serviced by the Buffalo org? Did the public cross state lines for courses there? Actually a very interesting question, because you never really think about the different churches and the different areas they affect. I did some work with New York org, and obviously they're going to deal with Connecticut, New Jersey, Long Island, all 5 of the boroughs. Some people even coming in from Delaware, some people coming from Rhode Island. That was, a little bit of a trip, but you forget that these organizations, although very interestingly placed, they do have surrounding areas that they take care of. So as far as Buffalo is concerned, Buffalo, if anyone is not familiar, Buffalo is in the northwestern corner of New York State. So it borders along Lake Erie, and its region goes up to Lake Ontario. And then Canada is right across, literally right across the river. The Niagara River was what kind of basically divides New York and the U.S. and Canada. So not only did we service people in Buffalo and the surrounding suburbs of Buffalo, but we also serviced people from Niagara Falls, St. Catharines, Ontario, Niagara Falls, Ontario, Rochester, New York, Syracuse, Elmira, Erie, Pennsylvania. So this is a really vast area that Buffalo actually managed. At one point, we were close enough to the Toronto org when we didn't have any auditors. We would actually send our PCs up to Toronto to get auditing. It's had a pretty big area that we took care of. I assume that that's still going on these days. I don't know, but it's pretty safe to assume that. I would say usually the weekends were our busiest times, where we had the people from Syracuse, people from Erie, Pennsylvania. We actually had a whole crew. I'm actually very interested to see if these guys are still around and what they're doing now. Some real characters down there, and it's not because of Erie, but it's just some very interesting individuals that I really enjoyed their company and time with them. And people from Rochester. So we kind of had, that was especially for the course room, the biggest time I had was those weekends, because we had everyone coming in from all over the area. Also what's interesting about Buffalo is we were pretty close to a lot of different organizations, because we had Toronto, we had New York, Boston, Detroit, Cincinnati, Quebec. We were kind of very centrally located in that area. I always thought it'd be kind of interesting if they ever wanted to do an advanced organization, that they could do one in that Buffalo region, because there's a lot of people a lot of Scientologists around, a lot of churches around us. I think there's like 5 or 6 churches around us, and from what they were saying, a very big population of people as well. Okay, our next question is from B. Maloney. You seem to be a very happy person. If you were stuck in that hellhole, would you have really been happy? It's a good question. This is kind of more of a personal question, about a little bit more kind of about my character, not so much about Scientology. But I always kind of attribute my tenure, if you want to call it, with the church as very character building, because of the massive highs and massive lows that I had gone through within the church itself. I try to be optimistic, happy, try to stay on the up and up. Obviously, I'm human. I have my days. I was a lot like this in Scientology, although a lot of my personality actually went away as the years went on, because I'm a jokester. I play tricks on people. I'm always trying to find something funny to say to keep people laughing, and to keep people just get rid of that tension that's always going on. And that was booed upon a lot of times. People referring to me as a joker and degrader sometimes, and that's a term in Scientology where you're just doing that. You're joking and degrading, meaning you're putting down the tech and putting down the church or people within the church itself. And I don't know. People enjoy my sense of humor, so I don't know if it really was doing that or not. But it kind of really killed my sense of humor, my sense of humor. And it was interesting, somebody I had become friends with in Scientology, or after I got out of Scientology, saw me hadn't seen me for about 2 or 3 years. And she noticed the time between when we met and this 2 or 3 years later, where my personality really started coming back out again. She's like, wow, you're actually, you're a great guy to be with, but you're actually kind of funny, and you're like you're always joking around with everyone. I never really got to see the side of you. And she knew about me being in Scientology, and I just had to tell her that my personality is coming out more of who I really am. So I never really thought about it. I guess Scientology really kind of dragged me down a lot. But at the same time, I tried to keep on the up and up, and tried to keep jovial and have a good time with everything. And I just never really take things super, super serious, because I don't really see the point. When you're trying to get something done and it's time to be serious, of course I've got to be. But for the most part, I just have a pretty good time in life. And our next question is J.R. Gultz. JR, we're going to get back to your question if you're watching. You're the last question. I got to take that up. I should have moved that over. Okay, so this next one is from Mary Beth Wiley. Okay, so how did you justify the constant fundraising in your mind? This is very similar to another question we had on the last one we did. All right, so how did you justify the constant fundraising in your mind? Did you feel like the church was too focused on money while you were in, or did you see it once you left? This is actually a very, very similar question, but it's got a little bit of a different twist, which is why I grabbed it. How did I justify fundraising constantly? We really actually were not fundraising a lot when I was on staff. Fundraising has become more and more from what I've been able to put together, and I wish somebody would actually tell me a little bit more about this. Maybe I'll find out from somebody when we can end up doing a video on this. But a lot of the fundraising that was being done was for our building. Once our building got up, it was more just making money for the organization and getting people in service. So I didn't really have to worry about the fundraising too much. Having to make money and be that the most important thing was very difficult on me, because it was very hard for me as the executive director, because I did not have a reg. I did not have anyone running the dissemination division of Scientology. I was having to do that. That was very difficult for me to do, because I couldn't really run the organization, because I had to spend so much time trying to get people on service. I did have a deputy executive director, and their job was to take care of all of delivery and service. So it was kind of like one of those gambles where he and I would have to kind of hash it out and work out how to make money every week. But I counted him concentrating on people coming in for services they paid for, and getting done with the services they paid for as well. Let's see. Yes, the last person just made a comment. We will be taking questions at the end. So yes, go ahead and ask any questions you would like. Okay. Did I notice this more? No, I'm noticing more and more that the church is becoming more of a fundraising activity than it is delivering the services. One of the big things that was pushed when I was around was winning what's called the birthday game. And this is something that L. Ron Hubbard put together in the late 70s, when, famously asked, what would you like for your birthday? And he said a 5x, 5 times expansion of Scientology worldwide. So hence the birthday game started. That seemed to be a lot of really what the push was when I was around, was winning the birthday game. And we could do a whole video specifically, and I say this a lot, but we could do a whole video specifically on this particular subject of what was kind of the day-to-day activities within the church. But, when I was around, that was really more the push, was winning the birthday game within the Eastern United States and winning the birthday game in the U.S. and obviously in the world. So no, I didn't really feel like there's a lot of push as much as I see and hear about now, because I know a lot of the organizations are having a really hard time raising the money. And from what I understand, the IAS is now acting as a fundraising for these buildings. If someone knows this, please go ahead and it has a little more specific information. Go ahead, send me information. My channel has my email address, my clarity after Scientology at Gmail. Go ahead and email me, and we can chat about it. The next, okay, so she actually had a two-parter as well. So this is, again, Mary Beth Wiley. I've heard every ex-member talk about Thursday at 2 and having to keep the stats up. While understanding sets, I don't know that I understand what the product was. What was your product that you reported as a statistic? Okay, so those of you who may not know, Scientology's week literally ended at 2 p.m. And it was always this constant push to get things done by 2 o'clock on Thursday. If you look at it administratively, it's kind of an interesting way to do it, because that means that you have time now to have all the meetings you need to have. The financial planning can get done. The battle plan for the week can be put together. And you basically walk in Friday and you just basically get the week. I mean, really at 2 p.m. you're really getting the next week started. But really Friday morning was when the battle plan would be set out to all the staff as to what our focuses were on. We'd have our staff meeting on Thursday night. And we would basically just, and every staff member would do their own individual battle plans for the week, what they're trying to achieve. And we make sure that it all came together so that we could get done what we needed to get done. So I always kind of liked that idea of ending at 2. The problem is that it was always Thursday morning. Sometimes is a major stat push, meaning that you're doing everything you can to get your statistic up. Now, a stat in simplicity, I mentioned this before in one of my other videos. Let's say you're a registrar and your job is to make money. So your stat is gross income. Hello from Florida. Whereabouts in Florida are you in from? All right, so by Thursday, what they'd have to do, a registrar would have to do, is to make sure that they're, say they made $1,000 last week. Now what they want to do is they want to make $1,500. And then next week they want to make $2,000 and $2,500. They want to keep their stat going up. And with that always became, you're always rewarded. You can get some time off, or you can get extra bonuses because your pay would be a little bit different because your stat is in a higher level. So that's what we're referencing in stats. And there's an actual physical graph that was kept. There's a lot of policies written around this particular area, which, really not that important right now. As the executive director, my stat was something called paid completions. Every service that was done in the organization had a value to it as a completion. You had minor services, which are the introductory services that had a particular point system, I think of 10. You had a major service, which was 20. And then you had auditing. Every time an intensive or 12 and a half hours was finished on a pre-clear, I think you had 40 points. So my statistic was basically people moving up the bridge, which as the executive director, the person running it, that's kind of would make sense that would be it. So mine was paid completions. As a course room supervisor, it was the amount of student points. Every student, every action they do as a student, there's a particular point system that had to be put together in order for them to do that. So that was one. Another one was when I was running the course rooms all together. The number of people completing courses for the week was another one. There's every single position has a particular stat that they run by. And that stat has to be reported every week. And if your condition goes down a certain level, you had to do a particular ethics condition to turn it around. Never worked. Ever worked. The only thing that ever got stats up was just doing your job and being consistent and being smart about it. I never, ever once had the situation where applying a condition actually got my stat up. My stat got up because I worked my ass off. That's why stats go up. Okay, good question. Kava Go, you are probably one of my biggest fans. You ask amazing questions. I'm going to keep the earlier question I answered you on the chat part, or on the on the chat part. So but I'm taking the second question that you asked. All right, so you said, like at the stress test tables, are they still doing stress tests? I was around when that started, and I could not believe it. It just that this is actually still being done. We were one of the first orgs other than New York to do the stress test. We had a great place we set up on Main Street it's this great place set up in Main Street that we used to do the stress test. Sold a lot of Dianetics books. I was actually pretty good at it. Not tooting my horn, but I was actually pretty good at finding people's ruins very quickly and selling Dianetics to them. All right, so good. So like at the stress test tables, when a Scientologist asks, "What have you heard about Scientology?" you respond. So he's kind of giving a scenario of something. So you respond, "I've heard that all you have to do to go clear is say, quote, I just realized I've been mocking up my own reactive mind all along, and now I'm not doing that anymore. Is this true?" No, it's not true. I am not a clear certainty rundown auditor, but I've received a clear certainty rundown, and I know enough from the training of auditors that I've done over the year, or did over the years, that there's more to it, because you have to do something date locate. Basically, you have to find the exact time when you realize that particular cognition of, I just realized I've been knocking up my own reactive mind all along, and now I'm not doing that anymore. There's a very specific process that has to be done to find exactly when that happened. I only know that because I gave that cognition, but we couldn't date and locate the exact location. So what happens after that, I really don't know. I'm sure you get browbeated on this particular point over and over just to make sure it actually happened. Are they really still doing stress test tables with the Dianetics books? Oh my God. It was kind of creepy, because I was here in New York when they started piloting this, and we went into this really cool section in the subway on 42nd Street that interlinks and no one's, unless you're from New York or have been in New York a lot, you're not going to really get this, but it basically interlinks 4 train lines. There's a train that goes east to west, which all trains go north and south. There's an east to west, so this goes from 42nd Street, Times Square to, I don't know, do I really need to do a video about this? I'm going to tell you anyways. So 42nd Street to Grand Central, that's a 7 train. Then you have the 1, 2, and 3. That goes up the west side, and 2 and up into the 1 train goes all the way local on the west side up to the Bronx, and 2 and 3 goes up into the Bronx as well. Then there's the A, B, C, and E train. I'm sorry, A, C, and E train that all go up on the west side as well. The A and C go up the west side, and the E goes over into Queens. And then there's the N, R, and W and Q train, which all go through this particular station. So there's a lot of stations that get connected. And you're also connected to Port Authority. So people taking buses to get out of the city, this is where you are. So it's a very busy station. They would set up right in that section where you came in off the blue line or the AC line, and then went off down to this corridor down to the 1, 2, 3, and 7 train, which also went to the N, R, and Q and W train. Okay, you're getting a little lesson on the train systems in New York City. But they would set up there, and they have all these tables there. And I wasn't out of Scientology yet, but I was working in the city, and I would walk by, and people would see me like, "Hey, Jeff, how's it going?" And I was like, yeah, that wasn't me. Just keep going. God, I can't. Oh, are they really still doing this? Okay. So we're going to get onto some questions, because actually we have a fair amount of people online right now. But the last question I want to bring, it's actually really not a question. It's just this really funny statement that was made. I don't know if all of you that are watching have watched Aaron Smith Levin's story. He was on the 9th. He was on like episode 4 or 5 of the first season, and then the 9th episode of the second season. of Scientology and the Aftermath. And the very end of episode 9, Leah Remini says, there's a very serious question we have that we need to ask you, Aaron. And we need to know about how's Goliath doing. And Goliath is Aaron's dog. And Aaron and I did a video together a couple of weeks ago, or several videos in the last couple of weeks. But J.R. Galt asked that he wants to hear more about the crimes the dog has committed. And what he's referring to is Aaron's property butted up, because he was in Scientology when he settled in Clearwater, and his property butts up behind, with a neighbor who's a Scientologist. And they bought Goliath, and Goliath would go over to the neighbor's house and hang out, and she'd actually take Goliath out for a while and go shopping with him, because he's apparently a very, very cool dog. It's just this ridiculous thing about Scientology that is just mind-blowing. And I still think that if we promoted this enough and got this more and more online and talked about through the chats and maybe on some TV shows about this dog, that now the neighbor is no longer allowed to talk to the dog, is no longer allowed to have the dog over to her house, and actually had to build a solid 6-foot fence so that she couldn't see into Aaron's lawn anymore, so the dog couldn't come over anymore. You want to talk about the crimes that this dog is committing, and it's like, it's probably pulling the hair out of these poor little MAAs at Flag that are having to deal with this woman and this dog situation. I mean, how ridiculous is this? She can't talk to the dog because Aaron's been labeled a suppressive person. It's a dog. I mean, just crazy. Just crazy. So I will find out, J.R. Galt, I will find out how Goliath is doing and what crimes Goliath is committing to against Scientology, because this dog is a serious problem that we have here. Okay. All right, good. So we're going to go over to some questions. Oh, wow, this is the most people I've actually had online at one time. Good to see this is actually starting to go well. Tia, T-E-H, Dr. Izamo. I'm sorry, I'm horrible with pronunciations, so if I just butchered your name, I apologize. Are we taking any questions from chat? Yes, we are. Go ahead and ask any question you'd like. Okay, so what was the prevalence of bigotry in the church in terms of racism or sexism or ageism? None. Scientology was always very open to other races. A lot of women actually were senior executives when I was in Scientology, so the whole point of sexism was not relevant. At least I didn't see it. Ageism, we had a staff member that was 76 years old, so ageism was not a problem. It's a very good question, but this is not something that I ever encountered. It doesn't mean that it didn't happen. I just never encountered it. The only thing I encountered, and I've mentioned on a video before, being gay, videos called, I think, Being Gay and Being a Scientologist. The only thing I ever ran into was about homosexuality, which just watch the video and get a little bit to get some more insight into. I go over in the video kind of what policies and what references were being written of the time when L. Ron Hubbard was around about homosexuality. The funny thing about where the Buffalo Org new building was put together was actually in Allentown, which, if anyone knows Buffalo, Allentown is a very gay neighborhood, and no one knew this when we bought the building. I mean, I knew it because I knew all the different neighborhoods. But plus, I'd walk around and you'd see the gay flag in people's, on people's doors. It was a sticker, or they actually had the flag, or you go by businesses and they had the rainbow flag, or I think it's a triangle for lesbian, for the bars or stores or support or whatever. That's the only. I only heard a couple times some people say something about homosexuals and that sort of thing. I did actually have to confront a Sea Org mission that made some snide comments about homosexuals, pointing out to them that they are in a very heavy homosexual neighborhood, or this is considered a gay neighborhood that we're in, and the business next door to us was a free clinic for African Americans, African American men to get tested for AIDS. So yeah, we got to kind of keep it down there a little bit. But no, I really never ran into any racism, never any sexism, never any ageism. Mike Rinder actually, in a video with Aaron Smith-Levin, made a very point how intelligent African Americans are for not getting into Scientology, which makes them very smart people. But yeah, I never really came across from this. Okay, Stella Bella, you were from, I think I saw you say that you were from Bel Air area? Oh, you're right down the street from Flag. Well, wave to Flag, tell them I didn't say hi. Was it easy to cheat the stats? You know what, I'm sure you could have. Gross income's kind of hard because of the receipts. Student points because the students, because everything was documented, so it was a little bit difficult to do it. I never did it. I never saw any point to, because there was no point. I just never find any point in lying about something like that, because you are going to get found out about. All right. This is from Manny Rosenberg. Are you still a Scientologist? No, I have been out of Scientology since my ex-wife, and I got divorced, and she disconnected from me in August of 2007. I was supposed to be going to an event actually that summer, and I got called. I got called. I agreed to go to the event. I then got an email or a phone call 2 minutes later saying, sorry, you're not allowed to come to events anymore. Goodbye, and hung up on me. And then like a week later, my wife disconnected from me. I was like, oh, okay. That's another long story, which I'll go over in another video. Lisa Ebbs, what is an overt? An overt is a transgression. It's a sin, basically. Overts are something that are used a lot with regards to... well, let me make sure you understand it. Okay, so basically it's a transgression. It's something that you've done against the morals of a group. Stealing, cheating, lying, murder. I mean, all of these things are transgressions, things that break the law. So overts are very important in Scientology because it's L. Ron Hubbard believed that the more overts a person commits, the less likely they're going to be able to make case gains. So Scientology had a lot of attention, or put a lot of attention on getting to people's overts and making sure that you clean them up, because there's a technology you can use in auditing that will clean up the overt, which it does actually. I always felt good after overts were, when I was getting auditing, take those overts out of there. So I hope that answers the question for you. Yes, Aaron's dog is sweet. Poor Goliath. Yes, poor Goliath. Gosh, poor thing. Okay, let's see. In terms of philosophy and not organized structure, being out of Scientology, have you lost all your desire to learn about enlightenment and spirituality, since now it is not all theta messed in your life? That is an awesome question. One of the things that drew me into Scientology was the idea that man is a spiritual being that has lived many lives, and that spiritual being is capable of accomplishing anything. To me, if you look at the things that we've accomplished over the last 100 years, technology-wise, the amazing artists that we have, the amazing scientists, the doctors, the inventors, I really do think that we are capable more of what we're kind of just grinded into in life to be able to do. So yeah, I do believe in enlightenment. Do I believe in a particular philosophy of enlightenment? I guess not really, because I don't really look at it. I almost kind of like, I've kind of shied away from it. I started actually becoming a Catholic a while ago, and just so my wife and I can get married in the Catholic Church, and I ran into a lot of problems with that, with regards to the structure of how the church worked, and reminded there's just too many things that were just too similar to what I had gone through for 13 years. But I see your question is more about enlightenment and spirituality. Yeah, I guess I do. I just don't really have an avenue to walk down. Please suggest something. You have my email address. Let's see. Okay, it looks like somebody else. Thank you, Red Velvet. You're the one I'm going to be doing an interview with shortly. You answered a question for me. Let's see. What was your experience with political participation while you were in Scientology? Did you vote? Did the church encourage you to vote in any particular way? That is an awesome question. No. No, I was never actually involved in politics. I actually grew up a politician's son. My family was very heavily and still very heavily involved in political campaigns in Rochester, New York. But no, we were never encouraged to vote any particular way. I would say one time, someone from the Department of Special Affairs who had a very good relationship with the mayor's office, went out and pushed us to go vote. I never registered in Buffalo. No, I was registered in Buffalo. I just never voted. I've worked too closely with politicians to really trust politicians. But no, I was never encouraged to vote a particular way either. It never came down from management to vote a particular way. I kind of get a little bit of a sense of Trump being pushed by Scientologists, or that Scientologists were more likely to be Republicans, but I never really got that. I mean, I don't know. Buffalo was a pretty conservative town, pretty Republican town. I think Buffalo went to Trump in the election, but I don't know if you're specifically asking about this particular election or not. So, yeah, I guess I guess I don't really know. The answer basically is no. Oh, I have somebody actually commenting about saying, I would lie on my student point sheet, but I would make sure they would go down and up, not to raise an eyebrow. Yeah, okay. I'm glad I wasn't souping when you were there. Let's see if we have any more questions here. We have a nice chat going on right now as well, so please participate in any chats if you'd like. Let me go back up here a little bit. Queen Bee 777, as a soup, how did you justify not knowing the answers on the check sheets? Not knowing the answers. Queen Bee 777, any chance you can clarify that? I knew everything, so I never had that problem. I'm kidding. If you could actually give me a little bit more information on that, and I'll take that up as soon as we can. Were you ever exposed to physical abuse, or did you ever see it? No. Not physical abuse. Mental abuse. I think the most horrifying thing I ever saw in Scientology, and I'm going to be using some terms here, and I'll try to clear them up as much as possible. As the executive director, my immediate senior would have been people in, the people in the Continental Liaison Office, or the Management Office. We'll just keep it like that. Or the Management Office was in New York City. They basically took care of all the Eastern United States. So my two seniors were the two people that ran the two particular divisions. I'm not going to get into the terminology. We had a very senior, Angie Blankenship. I hated that bitch, so I'm going to use her name. I don't usually use people's names because I don't want to out anyone. Angie Blankenship, you're a bitch. I don't like you. Never liked you. You were in my org, and you had called all of us up. We had the new executive director there. I was in another position when we opened up the new building. You had brought in these two particular people who I adored as human beings. They were actually put there by the new era of management, which has been brought up in a few videos recently. they were, so they'd been in their positions for almost 10 years, and right in front of me. Now, as a Class 5 staff member, I don't get involved in Sea Org member things that go on with people in the Sea Org. It's always done behind closed doors to people at my level. Sea Org members were here. We, Class 5 staff members were here. So anything that went on, basically, and it's same in most businesses. Senior management doesn't show lower management what's going on. So we're up in the executive office space, and Angie decides that this is a perfect time to basically rip Ray and Hubert a new asshole right in front of me and some of my other staff, and that was horrible to watch. She completely destroyed the two of them in front of us, and it was completely fucking inappropriate to do that because of who they were, to the point where she actually put them on post in Buffalo to make them pay because they screwed up, because management had to come in and bypass the entire CLO to get everything done, when it was management's idea to do this whole ideal org thing and never briefed anyone about it, which I actually found out a little bit later. So, it was more mental abuse. Okay, good. I'm reading the chat. Queen B777, thank you. You just clarified it. In particular, epicentric. Your soups often didn't even do the courses. You're right. A supervisor never needs to do a course. A supervisor is supposed to be a master of study technology. Misunderstood word, lack of too steep a gradient, and lack of mass. A supervisor is always supposed to point, there's a whole supervisor's code. It was our job to point the person in the right direction, to answer the questions that they had, to apply study tech to them, and to be able to get them to get to the answers themselves. Scientology, when you study it, you're learning it on your own. The supervisor's there to guide you in the direction you had to go. So whenever I was asked a question, I always had to show them a reference or find the reference for them to answer the question. I could never answer a question. That was called verbal data, which is exactly as it sounds. It's verbal data. It's my interpretation of what the text says. I hope that answers your question. Okay, we are not talking about 9/11. I got you think it was an inside job. That's fine, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Scientology. Oh, there's actually a funny story about Scientology in 9/11. That actually kind of brings it up. So this is when I was living in New York in 2006. I was between 2005 and 2006. I had found out that the Department of Special Affairs was ordered by David Miscavige to read Jim Mars's book. Damn it, the name just escaped me. I'll have to remember this. Jim Mars is considered, would be considered by the mainstream as what's the word I'm looking for? A conspiracy theorist. Oh, what the hell's the name of that book? It's actually a really good book. I read it. But if someone knows the name of the book, let me know. I've completely forgot. I'm sorry. I just ruined that story. I'll come up with it later. I'll remember again. All right, let's see. Do I think 9/11 was an inside job? We're not talking about this. I can do a whole set of other videos on a completely different subject than Scientology about what I think about 9/11. Okay, all right. So how often did people... All right, so this is from... I really don't know how to say your name, so I'm not going to butcher you. But everyone's seeing this, seeing the chat. All right, how often did people cheat on their spouses? More than non-Scientology society or less? No, really, people didn't cheat. People did cheat. But Scientology was so strict about 2D stuff or second dynamic stuff, meaning family stuff. Scientology had an enormous amount of attention on perversion and perverseness. Albert Humber's a little, from what I've been reading, a little bit of a pervert himself. But, excuse me. I don't know. I don't think that, no, really, I think it was a lot less. You have to understand, too, a lot of most Scientologists were really, really good people, and Scientology gave them a guideline to live by, which made them live a very honest and straight life. Most Scientologists were honest people and were hardworking people. So as far as the parishioners, it really wasn't a problem. Sea Org was a little bit different because you can't have a physical sexual relationship with somebody unless you're married to them. Problem is, you get a bunch of people together in their 20s and 30s, teens, 20s, and 30s. People get horny. Shit happens. But I wouldn't say people ever cheated on. I knew of a couple of Sea Org members that cheated on their spouses, but yeah, it's not, I wouldn't say, a very regular occurrence. So we got somebody from Sydney, Australia. Gerda Metz, hello. All right. What do I think of Marty Rathbun going back into the church? What do I think caused him to go back into the church? I don't really know much about this. I kind of try to stay away from this subject. I had worked with Marty a few times. He actually did a PTS handling with me when I was at Flag. I had actually been in touch with him when he got out of Scientology and started his blog as well. He remembered me, which was very, very nice. He was a pretty cool guy. He was in Buffalo as well when we opened the new church. But what do I think about him getting back into the church? Something someone said, and I'm not going to say who, but somebody said that he is not a very stable person. I'm sorry, somebody is messaging me 1,000 times right now, and I need to see what's going on here. That he's actually just not a very, in general, stable person. I don't know why that's ridiculous. Okay, sorry. When somebody sends you 7 text messages, it's maybe something's wrong, but everything's okay. So that he just really wasn't a stable person. He left Scientology right after the IRS win in 1993, and then came back, and then he blew again in 2002 or 2004, and then was a #1 enemy of Scientology, and went through a lot. He and his wife went through a lot of shit. She ended up his wife, Monique, I believe is her name, ended up finding a way to sue the church. I don't have a lot of details about it, but I do know that all of a sudden, she just dropped the case. And when I watched that Scientology documentary, I don't remember. Marty seemed a little unstable. He seemed a little bit overly touchy, and it just seemed a little bit difficult to gauge where his mental stability was at the time. So I would say that I think that if he's gone back into the church, I don't think he's really gone back into the church. I think he's agreed to shut up. I think he got paid off by the church to keep his mouth shut. It's not unusual. In fact, actually, the people will walk away from the church and will be paid to keep their mouth shut. Angie Blankenship happens to be one of those people, and I'm going to keep my mouth shut about her. I was going to say something very unkind. What do I think caused him to go back to the church? Again, I don't think he's in the church. I think he just kind of agreed to make these videos I think it was over the summer, where he was, obviously Golden Era Productions produced them. They're very highly professionally produced videos. I think he did that on purpose in order to start talking. I think he was made to do that as part of his settlement. So again, I don't think he's back in the church. Let's see, my next question here. Oh, good, guys, I'm really glad. We got a lot of questions. I like this. Do you believe in a religion after Scientology? I personally could not after Scientology. I got so burnt after that shit. Red Velvet, I agree with you wholeheartedly. Like I said before, tried becoming a Catholic. Saying this, I don't want to offend my wife. She and I have talked about it. So I'm going to say that's kind of a personal question that I don't really want to talk about. Being involved, I think one of the things I miss the most about being involved with a group of people is being involved with a group of people. That was probably the best part about Scientology, was the friends that I made and the people I was involved with. You know, you're not constantly always being a, you know, being a staff member, being a Scientologist. You're still a human being, and you still have that desire and connection to make friends with people. Whether people are on staff or the parishioners or even the Sea Org members that you worked with. You know, so that was probably one of the hardest parts I had after leaving. And I missed that. I missed that community a lot. And when I started to go through the steps of being a Catholic, I was involved in the young Catholics group, which we weren't really young. We're all kind of in our 30s and 40s. They'd started this group like actually they just celebrated the 20th anniversary. So I enjoyed that group. So we would go to church and then we'd all get together. A bunch of us would get together after church and go to the bar for like about an hour, have a couple beers and hang out. We'd do different things with each other. That part I miss. That part I missed a lot. And let's see, scroll down a little bit more here. Queen B777. Did you ever have the Sea Org at your org for recruiting? And if yes, did you put a person... Did they put a person to sign a billionaire contract in a small room and get that person to sign under duress? Of course they did. Okay, so basically she's asking, did we ever have Sea Org recruitment in our church? And was anyone's arm twisted to join? Yeah, everyone that did. We actually had some pretty kind of shitty things that happened because I actually stole staff members and they're not allowed to do that. You know, they're supposed to be replaced and that never got done. And it was never done properly. And in fact, actually, some people just went and signed their contract. You know, especially younger Scientologists would grow up in Scientology, be around the org a lot, be on course. They just signed their contracts and just go into the Sea Org. I mean, I think we had one family, the Weiberts. Jason, Jennifer, Jonathan, and Jeremy. 4 of their 6 kids went into the Sea Org before I left. One was at the CLO East US, one was at Flag, one was out west who left the Sea Org, and I don't remember where I think Jonathan went to Flag. So, but they all just joined. There really wasn't ever a recruitment cycle with these guys. They just joined. Queen B, you asking me, how did that make me feel? Are you referring to me losing all my friends? It sucked. It sucks a lot. It sucks a lot. I mean, I had a lot of really good friends. And that hurt to lose all those friends. It hurt to lose all those friends. I'm getting some of them back because Scientology is just screwing up. So it's been really nice. Actually, one of them's chatting with us right now, Red Velvet. Can you briefly explain what Scientology is? This is from Ex-Alt Nova. Can I briefly explain what Scientology is? What aspect of Scientology are you asking about? I mean, Scientology literally means knowing how to know. It's the study of life, is how L. Ron Hubbard described it. Scientology believes that man is a spiritual being. He is not his mind and he is not his body. In fact, there are 3 parts to a person. There's the spirit, or what's referred to as the thetan, and there's the mind, and then there's the body. And the thetan, or the spirit, is in control of all those 2 things, those 2 other parts. Scientology, I always describe the Scientology as being the instruction manual you never got for life. As much as Scientology might be looked down upon within these groups, there were still a lot of things that I learned in Scientology that I found to be very useful to use in my life. In fact, I still use some of these points, not as much as but very general points. You know what? To Ex-Alt Nova, go to the church's website and read about what Scientology is. That's probably the best thing to do. And then watch all these other videos that people are doing as well, so you get all points of view of what's going on. The problem with people that used to be in Scientology is we're considered to be, we have horns and split, little horns and a tail and a split tongue, and we're serpents and we're nasty human beings. But a lot of people that are out of Scientology still talk highly of Scientology itself. It's just the way Scientology is run that a lot of people have a hard time with. I know I really skated answering that question. I'm sorry, but it's a long one. Someone says Scientology is a money-making, destructive cult. Yes, it is that as well. But look for yourself as well. Look at their website. Hell, read a book. I mean, it's not going to hurt. I mean, and then read Leah's book about getting out of Scientology. Leah Remini's book, and all the multiple. Mark Headley wrote a great book. Ron Miscavige wrote another great book. Read, just absorb all this information that you have out there. Sorry, I'm just reading over this. Oh, I think someone didn't like my swearing. I'm sorry. So I have never heard a group of people listen to lots of ex-Scientologists that are better spoken but swear so much. Do you ever use any specific internal alternatives to swearing? I actually don't like to swear. Aaron Smith-Levin called me out on this. I don't really like to swear, but there's just one particular human being that I just had to swear about. Yeah, we do. I guess we do. I can't take responsibility for what other people do, I guess. That's my best answer. I try not. I really try not to. I try to keep it PG-13. But there were some, sometimes I just lose my cool about some things. So Red Velvet, yes, Janelle is in this year. Okay, so of the four of the 6 children, another one is actually in as well. Let's see if we have... Okay, Scientology is a destructive money-making cult. Okay, yes. Okay. All right. Let me just scan through and see if I've missed any other questions. Yeah, there's actually, if you're on the chat right now, Red Velvet, Tyler is his first name. His mother is the one I was on staff with. His mother actually left. Him and his sister joined the Sea Org, and she kind of left him behind. This is who I'm going to be talking to and doing a video with shortly. Let's see. Let's go back all the way. Wow, really good here. Okay, I think... All right, so Manny, you had asked a question. If I stay in the church, what will other members think of BOFA? What is BOFA? I'll give you a couple seconds. I'll give you a little bit to clarify that question if you would like. I'm actually very interested to hear what that question is going to be. And it looks like we got a kind of a strange little chat going on. Guys, have fun. I don't really care. This has actually been really cool. So I also saw your channel from Aaron Smith-Levin's video with you. Who else do you recommend I watch? Oh, who else do you recommend you watch? Oh, God. Chris Shelton is doing a fantastic job. Very smart guy. Almost too cerebral for me. But he does a really, really good breakdown of Scientology. He was not only a Class 5 staff member like myself, but he was also a Sea Org member as well for a number of years. Went through the RPF. So he went through, he's kind of gone through all the different stages of being a Scientology staff member. What else do you watch? Surviving Scientology, Scientology, the Money Project. Surviving Scientology is hosted by Hebert Jenses, who used to be the president of the church, his ex-wife, and now new husband, Jeffrey Augustine. Yes, Trish, thank you. Jeffrey Augustine is another great one to listen to. God, I wish I had a list of people. Mike Rinder's blog. It's a good one to go with as well. Yeah, there's a lot of ways you can do this. All right, I'm going to go now. I hope everyone has a good night. I hate to end very quickly, but I've actually got to get going. And I hope everyone has a good night. Oh, wait, last question. Did you ever go protesting, Jeff? No, I didn't. Yes, Tony Ortega is the other one. Everyone have a good night.